whole of human history is full of secrets and mysteries. In fact, even now, in the age of science and technology, our whole world order is causing thousands of questions, many of which cannot be fully answered by scientists. Time Puzzle Crew tries to uncover some of those mysteries surrounding the mysterious places of Kazakhstan.
In today's episode, who were the first anchors in the country whose popularity could compete with that of the movie stars? How were the first TV shows shot in the independent Kazakhstan? What funny things happen on air? Ghost that inhabits the building of the TV studio. Humanity has been thinking on the image transmission at a distance for a long time. For example, numerous fairy tales of different peoples from all over the world, where there are talking mirrors, crystal balls, or a dish with an apple rolling on it, and it was able to transmit not only the image, but also the sound. All these fantasies of the authors began to be realized only in the second half of the 19th century. It was then that, for the first time, the Italian Giovanni Caselli carried out his first transmission of images on the telegraph line Moscow-St. Petersburg. The chemical telegraph, that's how this device was called, and many historians believe that it was him who became the founder of the formation of television around the world. Now in the 21st century, TV is an integral part of almost any home. Learn news, listen to music, fill up the baggage of knowledge, or just have fun. All this can be done with the help of television. But who creates modern telemagic and how it all started here in Kazakhstan? How a fragile girl from the Far East has become one of the best Kazakhstani TV anchors. And she received an invitation from Almaty saying, "Please, we have a position to be filled and we invite you to work." And my mother said, "Warm, good, wonderful," from Khabarovsk. How did the television of independent Kazakhstan get along? We didn't have a tripod. There was only a table. The cameraman used to put several books on it, put the camera on top and rotated it. Funny stories behind the scenes and in shot. I'm feeling so bad. This one is laughing. Moreover, I see how the studio director also laughs behind the glass. What is behind the confident professionalism? And every time I came into the studio, I was so anxious that I thought it was the last day. The Koktebel TV tower is a symbol of Kazakhstan television. Today, more than 30 television channels broadcast from it. In 2018, Kazakhstan television celebrates its 60th anniversary. What was the memory of the Soviet period, and how did the television community change with the advent of independence? What unusual stories and even mystical events occurred on the other side of the blue screens? Watch all this in the today's episode of the Time Puzzle with me, Bakijan Nupiesov. Television has become an integral part of our lives, and it all began in the 19th century. So according to historians, there were several people who almost at the same time made attempts to achieve the transfer of information at a distance. They were the Italian Giovanni Caselli with his chemical telegraph, also the German engineer Paul Nipkow with his rotating disc on which an image was broadcasted using the light, and also Porfiry Bakhmetiev, who put forward the basic principles of television, the decomposition of the picture into separate elements for their consecutive dispatch to a distance, and many other scientists, experimenters and researchers. And the first television in the country of the Soviets began to air on October 1st, 1931. 27 years later, Almaty, Karaganda and Ust-Kamenogorsk television studios also started functioning in Kazakh SSR. The Time Puzzle crew went to visit a person who, although doesn't work at TV studio now, but she grew up there and knows the backstage very well. It smells of pie here. I think that we came right.
Здравствуйте.
My mother was one of the first anchors of Kazakh television. By a twist of fate, she arrived in Almaty in 1965. And from 1965 to 1992, she devoted more than 40 years to television and the formation of television, both Soviet and Kazakh. Her name is Alevtina Popova. Zoya Leonovich is daughter of one of the very first and famous anchors on Kazakhstan television, Alevtina Popova. Thanks to her mother, Zoya got into the amazing world of the television studio when she was a child. She gladly shared her memories with us. I remember my childhood. Well, probably since I was 2, as my mother told me, she brought me to a Christmas tree in the television studio for the first time. Then it was located on Mira and Satpayev. Now it's Zheltoksan-Satpayev Junction, the building of the television channel Kazakhstan, the Telecorporation. There I knew everything. Where are the hardware rooms? Where are the studios? Where are the corridors where you can sit and watch at the big monitors with the assistant directors? Alevtina Popova came to Kazakhstan television in 1965. She came to Alma-Ata from Khabarovsk, exactly 7 years after the first telecenters in the Republic were built. By the way, before that, there was no broadcasting in Kazakhstan and people learned news, as well as other important information, only from newspapers or radio. Only in 1958, the Republican Directorate of the Receiving Television Network of the Kazakh SSR was formed. And naturally, people who could work in this new sphere were required. She was the first speaker of Komsomolsk on Amur television. And then several years passed and she applied to Almaty. And she received an invitation from Almaty saying, "Please, we have a position to be filled and we invite you to work." And my mother said, "Warm, good, wonderful." And she got on the plane and flew away from Khabarovsk. And so she found herself at the television. Back in those days, Nelly Omarova was the first announcer of the Kazakh television, the Russian editorial staff. At that time, she decided to work at the radio, and my mother came to replace her. They have been friends with Nelly Omarova for all their lives, until the last days. And unfortunately, with a difference of 2 months, they both left this world. Alevtina Popova's friend and her colleague on the television, Nelly Omarova, got on television by accident. She graduated from the Faculty of Biology of the Kazakh State University and worked as a forensic expert. Accidentally, hearing from her friends that there was a competition for anchors, Nelly decided to go there with her friends just for fun. Entering the office where the commission was sitting, Nelly talked to them, laughed and so easily beat the remaining 700 contestants. Unanimously, it was decided to approve her as the official voice of the country, which would tell about all important events. In consequence, Levitan, the most famous announcer in the USSR, will say that the best speaker group in the Soviet Union is Alma-Ata. And of course, in part, these words were addressed to Nelly Omarova. The speakers had a very firm preparation. That is, it was rhetoric, it was oratorical skill. Once every 2 years, they were summoned to Moscow for refresher courses, which lasted 2 months. And the Moscow anchors taught there, and sometimes they studied together, for example, Kirillov and Shatilova. Kulimkan Kasenova, who worked on Kazakhstan television for several decades, also told us that the anchors of those times were special people.
Чтобы попасть диктором на телевидение, нужно было обладать, не знаю, всеми.
To get on television, it was necessary to have, I do not know, all such qualities, appearance and voice. I remember that in those years, only the owners of unique voices worked on television. At that time, most people didn't even know the meaning of the timbre of the voice. It even seems to me that they all had such a high-pitched, beautiful baritone. A lot of attention was paid to appearance. But most importantly, it seems to me that television of those years differs from today's television by the fact that only a few people could go on the air. The country began to build telecenters in the regions. Following the capital Alma-Ata, Ust-Kamenogorsk and Karaganda, TV appeared in 1959 in Jeskazgan, in 1960 in Petropavlovsk, Zelenograd and Uralsk. In 1964 in Balkhash and Semipalatinsk. In 1965, the TV could be watched in Pavlodar. Talking with the real legends of our country television, I found out one curious fact. None of them had planned to follow this path. Everyone whom we interviewed for this program stated that he or she got on television quite by accident. As well as our interlocutor, the famous TV journalist Andrei Zubov graduated from the Pedagogical University. I worked as head teacher at school and then left to journalism. And since the 1989, I have been working in journalism. I worked in various newspapers, on radio, in magazines. But television is a big part of my life. A similar story happened with the famous TV presenter and producer Yevgenia Sakhanova. I had no idea that I would work on television. I graduated from the university, the Kazakh State University, the Faculty of Philology. And then it was fashionable for students. There was such a fancy cafe for creative personalities in Alma-Ata. This cafe was called Aku. Now, unfortunately, it is no longer there. Some creative and artistic people used to go there, while we as young students also spent a lot of time there. And the creators of the TV show where I started to work, it was called TNN, Television Unofficial News, the KTK channel, they also liked to spend time there. And as a matter of fact, that's where they saw me. The funniest thing is that they conducted auditions there. The cameraman just arrived with a camera, I was given a newspaper, there was some simple ad. I read it and it was decided that I will conduct this unofficial television news. Zubov and Sakhanova had the opportunity to work on television of the independent Kazakhstan. It was necessary to invent something new, as they say, some fancy stuff, to grab the attention of the viewer. The television of the independent Kazakhstan was built on the foreign standard, and even if it sounds oddly, using some creative resources. When we started to build independent television, we did not know anything, up to how the anchor should behave. And our, as they are now called, the producers, they brought, I do not know how they did it, then it was difficult. There was no internet. They brought several cassettes with records from various foreign television stations. Well, in particular, there was the BBC, there was CNN, there were 2 Japanese companies. We watched how the anchors behaved during filming. We changed the appearance of anchors and announcers. If earlier hair, clothes, decorations were approved on the Artistic Council, then at the moment many of these rules simply became a thing of the past. It was necessary to give something new, fresh, non-standard, and it was rather difficult to do this. We didn't have even a tripod. There was only a table. The cameraman used to put several books on it, put the camera on top and rotated it. There were no phones, no smartphones, no computers, no good cameras which could record videos. There was nothing of this, but there were movie cameras, these buzzing, hissing cameras like ones from Western movies. We used such cameras. For the first time we learned that the face shines when the light is direct, and we lended light from photographers. Faces shone like stars, and my friend's wife gave him a powder. "Powder your faces," she said, "and you will not shine." And that building was an ordinary administrative building, and there were officials sitting there with thick bellies. We went into the men's room and started to powder each other. He helped me, I helped him, and a man, some authority figure, entered the room. He saw us, 2 men in a men's room, who stand and powder each other. Oh my! He screamed and ran away. And there are lots of such funny stories. No less ridiculous story happened to Yevgenia Sakhanova during one of her live broadcasts. The news came out twice a day, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and at 8 o'clock in the evening. Summer, 1 p.m. The heat is terrible. Consequently, the roof is very hot. The studio is very hot. But during the recording and moreover during the live broadcast, the air conditioner must not work. Otherwise, the sound wouldn't be clear. So everything is turned off, only light is on and you with the operator in the studio. In such a hot environment, Anchor's makeup starts to flow and Anchor herself starts to sweat. This could not be allowed, and then the operator, working in tandem with Sakenova, came up with an original solution. He says to me, "Listen, you're hot, your makeup begins to leak during the air. Let's do like this. I'll lie in front of you." There was such a huge studio table and it was possible to put another little sofa in front of it. And it is not visible in the frame, so viewers can see only the news and me. He said, "I'll bring the sofa, I'll lie down on it. I'll take such a special thing. Operators use it to set a balance, such white plastic thing." He said, "I'll pick it up and while you are not in the frame, while some other videos are on, I'll wave at you, so that you were not so hot." Half of the news was in the usual rhythm. The announcer worked in the frame, led to the plots. While the viewers were watching the report, the operator was waving at Evgenia and everything was going well. But as it often happens, the live broadcast is an unpredictable thing and anything can happen. The news is coming to an end, and I'm told right before the end of an urgent message that literally some time ago a man left home and he's lost. In general, there is some kind of tragedy. People are looking for him. I have to read this now, say goodbye to the audience and already leave the air. And Nikolai at this time loses his balance and he falls out. The armrest from under the head rattles down. And I'm already in the frame, they show me. I look at the camera. And he is with his hands stretched forward, flying past me like this. With this white thing, he flies like this, falls under the table to my feet and begins to laugh there. He cannot laugh loudly, he's shaking. The table is shaking together with him. And I need to say that such a man today left home at 7 a.m. at some tragic circumstances. Very serious information. I'm feeling so bad. This one is laughing. Moreover, I see how the studio director also laughs behind the glass. And then the director took pity on me, and just before the time he gave a picture, a photo of this man, who was actually to be searched. Well, that's it. We are done. The heading is on. Joly jumps and runs from the studio and I'm all in the wires, the mic, everything. I'm starting to tear it all down. Wait! And run behind him. These are the funny moments. This is live. As in any profession, TV men have their own superstitions and beliefs. Many people believe that if you follow the rules, then the probability of getting into an embarrassing situation on air or getting trouble in the studio is minimized. TV workers claim that there are many things that under no circumstance can be done or spoken on the set or in the studio. Or vice versa, you have to do it. For example, for successful shootings of programs and TV shows, you need to sit on the script before starting. But bring sunflower seeds to the studio and nibble them. It's strictly forbidden. This is connected with the fact that seeds are in most cases associated with husks and dirt. Dirt in the slang of TV crews is a long-quality shot, a bad sound or extraneous in the frame. Hence they believe if there are sunflower seeds in the studio, then the whole work, it's dirt, and there can be nothing good in the studio today. It is also not recommended to say the phrase, "Now I will quickly film everything." As soon as you say these words, be sure that the shooting will run over time. Someone believes in these superstitions, some do not. They believe that the main thing in working for television is different. The main thing in the work of TV crews is to coordinate their actions. Right now, behind my back, the preparation for the next filming is going on. As we can see, there is a very fierce argument about how to set the light and how to shoot properly. Now, the majority of Kazakhstani TV channels broadcast in digital format. But few people know that some 36 years ago, television in the country was black and white. Only since 1981 the broadcast became color. This became possible due to the appearance of a huge number of televisions with color kinescopes. Our next guest, TV anchor Kimbat Kangeldina, did not catch this transition period. She started working on TV when the broadcast was already color, and as she admitted herself, she did not think that her life would be connected with this type of media.
Совершенно случайно я человек на телевидении, и об этом я не раз рассказывала. В общем-то,
I was a complete odd jobber on television. I have often told about this in general. It turned out that on a large scale, I did not know what I would do in my life. And I thought that I would arrange with science. Moreover, not technological but arithmetical, humanitarian. That is, either it was philology or philosophy. Well, and as a result, I decided in favor of ours KazGU. I wanted to become a philosophy teacher. Kimbat Kangeldina got on television because she wanted to please her father. He insisted her to go to the Republican contest of TV presenters. She went there without any preparation, not even counting on anything.
скажу по секрету, оказывается, там были люди, которые...
I was told about it in secret. It turns out there were people who were interested in some individual personalities of this contest. And by chance, I got into some of these people somehow. Probably they thought that I too was someone's, somewhere, somehow. I have never told anyone this before, and they just listened to me attentively. After passing all the qualifying stages, Kimbat Kangeldina imperceptibly for herself took the path of the TV star. At first she worked as a usual announcer, then she was offered a more responsible and serious position, a news anchor. More than 25 years have passed since that day. Now Kimbat Jibek not only hosts TV shows and live broadcasts, but also she is the chief editor of a whole information department on the channel. She has a huge experience behind, which would seem should give 100% self-confidence. But now, even after 25 years, there is always a trembling and fear before live broadcast. And every time I came into the studio, I was so anxious that I thought it was the last day. In general, the last day when I came to work on television on the air. And I'll tell you honestly, to this day, for 25 years, I started in 1992 and now is 2017, 2018, right? I have been working for TV for 25 years, and every time there is some complicated broadcast or a complex project, I say this is the last time I work on television. It is really so, it's absolutely frank. Before the capital moved from Almaty to Astana here on Republic Square, there was the largest number of TV channels per square kilometer. A little higher was the building of the Kabar TV channel, and the building of the Kazakhstan TV channel was located below Satpayev Street. Well, near the Independence Monument, there were such channels as KTK, First Channel and Mir TV channel. Now, of course, in many of these buildings there are only cabinet offices, because most of the editorial staff and the whole television moved to Astana. Conditionally, the formation of Kazakhstan television can be divided into 4 stages. The first is Soviet television, when everything was done according to the direction of the party and the decision of the Artistic Council. The second is the time of perestroika, then some new techniques and practices were introduced. The third is the gaining of independence, when a huge number of private channels appeared, and the fourth is the modern state. At that time, it was difficult to work on television technically. Nowadays, most of people have an access to the internet, to YouTube. That is, it is not worth anything to get any information. I think that we have certainly made a step forward on the technological side. Now we have absolutely wonderful studios, not only in Astana but also in Almaty. We have excellent technical specialists, directors and operators. I will honestly say from the point of view of my workshop of journalists and TV presenters. Unfortunately, it seems to me that the TV presenters of the Kazakh television of the Soviet Union, since we're talking about the 60th anniversary of television, they were much more competent than us. Certainly. They taught us, we were taught the technique of speech. We were studying orthoepy, that is, how to make a word stress correctly. Now, unfortunately, this is happening fewer and farther between, and young people who come to work on television do not always understand it. It seems to them that it's very easy to work on camera, and you can say anything and anything. And this, of course, frustrates and frightens me. Especially the advent of the internet contributed to this a lot. There everyone can feel like a TV presenter and become a celebrity without much difficulty and a long learning. Far from all television luminaries welcome such easy access to fame. And this is quite understandable, but there are those who believe that the future belongs to the youth. Now they have great opportunities. I'm very pleased with these opportunities. They constantly keep us in tone. I mean those people who started once, and young people do not allow us to stay below the level that exists today. Because now those young people who come to television, they are very advanced, both technically and in some general contents. This is a completely different life, completely different words, completely different texts. It is necessary to be constantly in step with the times. It's not easy, it's a constant work on yourself. As you can see, the work of TV men is not just a beautiful fairy tale. This is the most difficult work of representatives of several professions, such as cameramen, journalists, editors, makeup artists, and many others. Each of these positions requires certain skills and abilities, and some of them may even be harmful. Especially was felt in those times when there were no modern technologies and even normal cosmetics. I believe it was in the 80s. There was a total deficit. There were no hairsprays, no powders, no mascaras. In general, there was nothing. And they to set their hair, it's not like I'm sitting right now. I straightened up my hair and went on the air. That is, God forbid, if you had one lock that got out of your hairdo. All this was poured densely with varnish, those big hair and so on. And they mixed the furniture varnish in half with water. All this was poured into a spray gun, and this hairstyle was poured with that mixture. Then my mother used to come home and ask, "Zoya, please, comb my hair." And so I was literally sitting and combing her hair almost one by one, trying to remove the varnish, because if you wash it with water, it will look like a shower puff. I really don't know how she managed to save her hair. We helped each other to apply makeup before broadcasts. We wore our own clothes, that is, what we wore in life. There was not enough light. There were not enough tool-up, competent studios. We were saved only by our youth, optimism, enthusiasm and encouragement. Television, as one intelligent person said, is a beautiful, bright but changeable lover. She loves you, she caresses you when there is a project. The project is coming to an end, it turns away from you, you sit and think, should I work in the newspaper? The newspaper is an ugly, boring but faithful spouse who, unlike television, will never give up on you. But however that may be, television is the shortest path to popular glory. And as is known, after passing fire and water you can fail on copper pipes. It is, of course, the so-called big-headedness. But Kazakhstani TV men, as it turned out, have immunity to it. Zoya Leonovich, talking about her mother Alevtina Popova, recalled that in the 1960s and 1970s, the announcers were in fact all people's favorites. Literally everyone knew and respected them. And there was a great temptation to use such a position. She never swaggered. She blushed terribly to her hair roots when she went into the store and she was told, "Oh, it's Alevtina Popova, come here. In times of total deficit, we left sausage for you." Mom used to cover her face with her hand and leave. Those who watch TV regularly, no less regularly, see the advertising. For the viewer, this is a real irritant which prevents you from enjoying your favorite TV show or movie. But as you know, advertising costs a lot of money, and its placement on the air is real money for TV channels. With the advent and development of commercial channels, a lot of advertisements appeared on TV screens. It was a shock for viewers who were not accustomed to such amount of provided services and goods. We did not accidentally talk about advertising, because it involves a lot of funny stories, one of which was told to us by the famous TV journalist Andrei Zubov. This happened in the 90s, when he, together with Evgenia Sakhanova, hosted the TV show about informal news at one of the first commercial channels. Funeral bureaus appeared. Business became a part of all spheres of society, and one man came to us. He was dressed in a strict black suit, a black tie. He says, "Hello, I'm the owner of the first funeral home. I would like to order a commercial." We say, "Well, is a video clip? How do you imagine this?" The video probably isn't the most appropriate format. Maybe it would be appropriate to do an interview. Everyone can have tragic moments in life. We will come to the rescue. He says, "Well, let's do the interview." Then he looked at us and he saw our cameraman was in his 50s and our editor, he was also gray-haired. So he looks at them and says, "Maybe we should barter." Naturally, this situation was translated into a joke, and now for sure in modern realities it would simply not have happened. But at that time it was absolutely normal and in the order of things. In general, the work of a television man in any country requires a good sense of humor to himself, his colleagues, and sometimes even to the audience. So in the same 90s, at the dawn of independent television, there was a story that almost became a precedent for the trial. On April the 1st, we thought, what would cheer and please our people? We decided to make a joke and announce to our dear citizens that if you bring, I do not remember exactly, kilogram or two of torn pantyhose to our hosiery factory, then it was called Dzerzhinsky, then this enterprise in return for this kilogram will give you a pair or 2 pairs of whole new pantyhose. And at the beginning of the news, we warned people that throughout our show there will be such several jokes, so to speak. Statements that if you recognize and guess them, you can call us during or after the air, for example in 20 minutes, and then you will receive a small jocular prize from our editorial office. In the morning we come to work, our phone was blowing up. Some women called us who said that they will sue us. This poor unfortunate knitting factory barricaded itself because women with huge bales, not only from the city but also from the provinces, came to change there for new tights. Well, I emphasize once again, the 90s. Well, it was such a completely ridiculous story. That's how people believed us then. And this was an incident. In addition to curiosities, our TV reporters told us about mystical events. Sometimes when shooting various scenes, some incomprehensible silhouettes can be seen in the frame. This happens on scenes of the crime where people died. There are also bugs of sound without any apparent cause, equipment failures, and so on. And they say that there is a ghost in the building of the television studio at the junction of Satpayev and Zhaltoksan streets.
Я сталкивалась с этими разговорами, и однажды даже была сама свидетелем таким.
I heard these conversations, and one day I even witnessed it myself, in a woman's closet. I do not know if it is appropriate to talk about it or not. The door in the woman's bathroom was closed. I pulled it, it seemed to be closed. Then I came back in a few minutes, pulled, and it was closed. And suddenly it opened. There was such a feeling that someone was holding it from inside. Then, the second I went there, I felt some kind of wild cold, as if I went out in the winter. And then I realized that someone really held this door. Then, when I already told my colleagues, everyone said that yes, and if you look in the mirror in the elevator, you can see someone's reflection. Maybe it's just a tale, but be that as it may, no ghosts, difficulties and incidents do not frighten those who love television. They live by it, and they are ready to continue to force the viewers to dive into the magical world of the blue screen. People become addicted to it. Moreover, it touches not only those who are in the frame and those who produce behind the scenes. That is, operators, directors, scriptwriters. It touches all people in general who meet in one way or another. It does not matter you clean the studio or you collect the scenery. but you work in television. And this general collective infection, let's call it like that, this is that spirit. Therefore, once you have tried it as a drug, you can hardly give up.
Работа в эфире – это само собой каждая женщина.
The work on the air is, of course, every woman will understand me. It is a great opportunity to look at yourself, because no one can show you it except a TV. That is, it is a constant work on yourself. And probably this is what will never end. This is the end of our brief visit to the history of Kazakhstan television, which is already 60 years old. Now you know that our work is not just interesting, but sometimes very difficult. We make good TV for good people. It was a time puzzle. My name is Bakejan Nurpiyev. See you on the air.